Today I have been called to share a little bit about my story and why I do what I do. And honestly, on the way here, I'm sitting at the beach, or a sort of beachy like area, and it's where I get most of my most beautiful downloads and be able to do the best healing. So you will see tons of cars go by, I'm sure. I'm actually gonna turn this off.
Waiting for pairing.
Wanted to turn that off in my car. I don't know if that makes it better or worse, but whatever. So, god dang, that's a nice car. I like it. Ready. Mustang. So nice. Okay. So, excuse me while I stumble through this. 111 on my recording. Vulnerability post. Now, I love to talk about vulnerability and the power that is in it. Because as human beings, we are supposed to be connecting with other people. And most of us feel so alone, or like nobody would understand who we are, or nobody would understand our story even if we tried to share it, right? Well, I am going to tell you that that is a lie, and that most people understand the story. And it's just something we tell ourselves so we can keep ourselves protected, but it also keeps us small, and it keeps us from standing in our power. So a little bit about why I do what I do. It's because I want people to be able to be and feel powerful in who they are and what their purpose is, right? I want people to know that just by being you, simply by being you, that you are powerful. You are living your purpose every single day just by being you. And I'm going to share my story, and it is triggering. So this is just a warning. Like if you have some of these same things in your life, I see you. When I was a child, I was introduced to like a lot of trauma, okay? And I don't, like, I want to be specific, but I also don't want to be specific. But so we're just going to do it. We're just going to be specific, I guess. I was introduced to the sexual side of nature at the age of 4 years old. And my mother obviously had her own trauma, right? Good morning. She obviously had her own trauma, so she couldn't help me, right? Like she couldn't help me. And it was actually her boyfriends that were doing sexual abuse things to me, right? And for years, like it was for years, there were like 5 people total in my life that have abused me in that way. And I was taken into foster care at about 7 years old. And like, I want to be 100% honest with you guys. Like, the memories that I have from my childhood are all trauma. They're all trauma. There's like no good memories that I have at all. I think I have one from preschool of like seeing a train and like at school. Okay, so this is just weird, like how trauma works in your brain and how like your brain actually shrinks in areas and doesn't grow because of trauma. And like, I want to share this with you so you guys are aware of how your body functions and how you carry that trauma, if you don't heal it and do the trauma work and the shadow work around like what these things are, if it's not done, then you carry this into your adult life and you end up making mistakes that could have been avoided had you known. Like, had you just known, right? And so I went into foster care. I had a brother and sister. I obviously still do. Biological brother and sister. We were separated when I went into foster care. My mom got to keep the two littles, and then I went into foster care because of this abuse and neglect. And then I was in foster care for 3 years. They ended up going into foster care too, but it was later, and we were all separated from each other. And then we came together and I was in 10 different foster homes, okay? Some of them were great, some of them were awful. So I was in 10 different foster homes. Eventually the last one, me and my brother and sister all came back together. And we were in this foster home for, I feel like, listen, my memory sucks, right? So don't even like quote me on this timing, but I feel like it was like a little bit like a year. So don't quote me on that, but whatever, it doesn't even matter, okay? So we were there for a year. We got adopted together into a family. And before we were even adopted, my adopted father molested me. Right? So like this has been this like curse. It almost felt like a curse, right? So I knew, okay, hi. I knew what would happen, right? Obviously, because I had just been through this whole situation, that my brother and sister would be separated if I told anybody about this situation. So I didn't. And for 3 years, this man abused me. My adopted father sexually assaulted me for 3 years. Okay. And I didn't tell anyone because I did not want to be separated from my family. And like consciously, as a 10-year-old girl, I was like, I'm not telling anyone because I don't want to be separated from my family. Like, I had terrible abandonment wounds, you guys. And I eventually was at summer camp and I told a friend of mine what was happening. And that friend of mine told the camp counselor, and it started this whole process, right? Of like the cops being called, things coming out into the open, like just all this stuff. And I was made out to be a liar, okay? I was removed from the family, just me, like I thought, right? I was removed from the family and put back into foster care. My brother and sister stayed. And I guess, I don't even know all this part, but my father at the time went through some sort of like lie detector test and like court something. I didn't get to know anything about it, but apparently he passed the test and like did all this stuff. But I could literally tell you every single time and what happened and where I was from every single piece of trauma. Like I could still to this day do that. So you can't sit here and convince me that I'm a liar, okay? So I go back into foster care. And then I eventually get adopted by this beautiful family. And she had my mom, who is still currently my mom, right? We're just not in contact because of what I do. I read tarot and I'm, I do this and I'm spiritual and I'm, just different. And so we have an estranged relationship, me and my whole family. And she has 9 total kids, and there were like 60 kids in and out of her home. So she's a huge fucking blessing, a whole blessing, dude. Taking that many kids in and out of your home and showing them love and showing them support, and like hands down the best woman. Okay, I didn't think I was gonna cry, but I brought a tissue just in case. Best woman. I went through like relationships even as a teenager, right? Jumping into them right into sexual relationships, right? And I had sex willingly for the first time at like 10 years old. Nope, I was 13. I was 13 years old when I went back into foster care. And obviously I jumped around from school to school. I was always the new weird kid, and because I've always been just me. Like, I've always been this weird person, right? Which I fully embraced. I didn't give a shit, but like I was also really judged by it, so I did kind of give a shit. As a child, it's weird, right? We all go through some sort of bullying. So I get adopted, and I go in and out of these relationships that are obviously emotionally codependent, just codependent in general. And I hurt a lot of people because of my own trauma. I was hurt by a lot of people because of my own trauma. I then reintroduced myself to my birth mother. I found her on MySpace. Yay, social media. So I found her on MySpace when I was 17 years old. And it's crazy because the last thing I said to my mom was, I will find you. You are my mom, and I love you, and I will find you. So when I was 17 years old, I found her, and I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't tell my birth mother. I didn't tell anyone. And she ended up moving from Texas back to Michigan to be around me, to be with me in my life. And it was within like the week that we met again. Okay. So for 10 years I was without my mom, and then all of a sudden she's back again. So I was like, oh my God, my childhood dream is like becoming this reality that I wanted so bad. Okay. When she came back, she hadn't fought her demons. So she ran from them, went to Texas and ran from them, right? And then became an alcoholic when she came back. So I moved in with her, lived with her for a while. Then I ended up and she was in and out of relationships. I got married when I was 18 years old. I ended up cheating on him and leaving the relationship because of my trauma, right? It was just this whole fucking mess of a life, dude. And like at 17 is when Pluto went into Capricorn. So this was like when Pluto was like, hey bitch, hey bitch, it's time for you to do the inner work. Like really bad. Like you really got to do it. So obviously all this destruction was happening in my life. I'm sitting also at a park, so if you guys hear that, I'm sorry. So I get married, I get divorced within the year. I ended up moving in and out with my mom, like over time, and in and out of relationships and living with them and like codependent with that. And I eventually moved to Wisconsin because there was nothing going right for my life here. So I left. I did the same thing my mom did, right? I just left because I was like, it wasn't me. It's not my problem. It's not me. Okay, so I go to Wisconsin, I meet another person, I get married. Looking back on this shit is wild, you guys. So I get married. Again, within the year, I'm divorced. I meet my daughter's father while I was married. Okay, met my daughter's father while I was married. We were separated, so we ended up moving in together. I have been basically homeless, like personally homeless, my whole life. I had a baby, obviously. She's 7 now, and that was the most abusive relationship I've ever been in. When I was 2 months pregnant with her, he choked me in the shower, and I literally felt like I was gonna die, right? Obviously, when you're in that situation. So we took him to court. He went to jail for that. But then I ultimately was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I did that to you. Like, I was traumatized, you guys. Like, I'm so sorry I did that to you. And I ended up going into the court and being like, he's changed and it's different now. And so this narcissistic abuse, right? And he wasn't different, y'all. He was not different. That shit just continued to happen. So I ended up leaving that relationship, taking my daughter. I was in and out of jail. You guys, I had never been in trouble with the law in my life. I stole something when I was 16 years old. That scared me enough. I was out. So I went to jail on false accusations twice. Once I smacked him in the face, but it was because of like, you know, that reactive abuse, right? He was pushing me to that point. He literally, I smacked him in the face. He got up, went into his car, drove to the police station. The police showed up at my house. So it was like this thing that he did on purpose. Like he wanted it to happen. So, and that was right when my daughter was born. Like she was so little, she was a baby. And I went to jail. And then a friend of mine bailed me out. So like, I had never been in trouble with the law until this person. And like, that was the biggest wake up call of my fucking life. Of my life. Like, I'm like, who the fuck are you? What are you doing with yourself? Why is this happening to you? Like, why are you letting this happen? And so I moved back from Wisconsin to Michigan, packed up my shit in a U-Haul with my daughter, left. Moved back in with my mom. Wasn't the greatest idea because she was still the same person she was, also an alcoholic, also partially narcissistic when she became when she became drunk, and blamed everything about the past on me, and like always wanted money from me, and always like just all this stuff, right? And I went into massage school. And this was when I was like 20 something, mid 20s, okay? Went into massage school. It changed my fucking life. Changed my life. Completely changed it. I didn't know about anything holistic. I didn't know anything about natural foods or natural herbs or all these things to like help and fix your body and help you heal. I didn't know about like myofascial release. I didn't know that massage was like a way to get this stuff out of your body. I did not know any of this. And that was my awakening. 6 years ago, I had an awakening. And I was like, oh my God. I cannot believe that I've lived all this many years, this 20 some years of my life, not knowing that this was possible, that healing was possible. And I did a lot of it on my own. Like, because that's what Capricorns do, especially if you have abandonment and trust wounds. Then you don't fucking want anyone to be that close to you because they could use it against you, right? So I had a lot of friends in that class that are part of my soul tribe still. And one introduced me to tarot. One like was just there for emotional support. Like it was beautiful. God created this reality for me to like heal. And I did shadow work for 5 years. 5 years I looked at myself and I looked at my patterns of behavior and I looked at my trauma and I looked at all of this and I was like, holy shit. Like, this doesn't even belong to me. This belongs to the line of generational trauma that has been in my family. See, my mother was also sexually abused by her brother. And my mother knew that I was being sexually abused. There's an instance where I remember her watching it happen, okay? Not knowing what to do. And her brother abused her when they were children. And my grandmother swept it under the rug because that's just shit you don't talk about, especially in a Christian household, right? So these are generational things that I have taken upon me to be like, this is stopping with me. My children are not going through this. They're not. And unfortunately, my daughter does have, a father who hasn't dealt with the wounds and has the narcissistic tendencies. And I'm separated from her because every time I go to court, I get less and less time with her. I get less and less custody of her because of the life I choose to live, which is doing tarot and running my own business and not fucking working for 40 hours a fucking week. Like, that's just not me, dude. It's not me. And it shouldn't be anyone. we weren't born to just fucking work our life away and then retire when we're 60 years old and all of a sudden be like, oh my God, I never lived my life and now I'm too fucking old to live it. I'm sorry. No. So it's just a whole mess. Like, so I deal with that on a daily basis. I do get to talk to her every week. Usually, it's supposed to be 3 times a week, but usually she answers once. So I deal with that, right? And I'm still like in this process of unwinding some of the codependence and learning how to stand in my masculine power and learning how to stand in my feminine power and like really holding my own. All I want in my life is to have a home. And not just a home. I want a homestead. I want chickens. I want a farm. I want just simple shit. Just simple shit, right? I want vegetables and fruits and a garden and like a cellar and like all this shit, okay? And that's all I want for my life. I want it to be happy, joyful. I want my kids to be safe, comfortable, not have to live through the stupid shit that I've been through, you know? But the reason I'm sharing this is because I want you guys to understand where I come from and why I do this. Like, I do this so you guys understand too that you're not fucking alone. You'll never be alone, ever. Even if you want to be alone, you're not. Like, there's always people around you who support you. And like, now I'm in this position where I do stand in my power. And when I do, I trigger other people. And it comes down even to like, I trigger people in their accountability. And if you don't want to hold yourself accountable in certain situations, and that is like a deal breaker for me, like it's a deal breaker for me. If you don't want to hold yourself accountable in situations, then I don't have to be here. And that's a huge turn from staying too long, right? Staying in relationships, friendships, whatever, for too long. So this is where I am now, right? Like, I don't have to constantly feel like I can't stand in my power against like how I feel, like my boundaries, right? If you're overstepping my boundaries, I don't have to put up with that. Like, I can state how I feel, and if it triggers you, well, I'm sorry. Like, you have to also deal with that trigger. So I want other people to understand that just because you are alive, you trigger other people. And that is okay. It's okay to trigger other people. Like, because it's not just about you, right? You're not the fucking demon for like letting them know about themselves, okay? And like being vulnerable. That's another thing I want you guys to learn how to do, right? And how can you find trust and faith in me if I'm not vulnerable with you? So I do healing sessions for people, and I dive really deep into their trauma and into their inner child. And honestly, I can see someone's inner child from looking at them and talking with them for about 5 minutes. I can tell you what your inner child requires, what trauma your inner child has, and I can break down all of this stuff for you to eat it in small bites and build yourself back up into your life, like into your true authentic life, not the one that you wear a mask in. And that's what I want to do for people. I don't want everybody out here feeling like they have to hide themselves, because that's not who we truly are. And if we're not connecting with other human beings on this type of level, then we're never going to get to this space of unconditional love. And that's where I am. And most people can't meet me here. Sometimes the people I'm with get triggered because I tell my friends I love them. And a lot of my friends are guys. And like, I just don't, that's childish to me. Because these people have been in my life for years. And if I love that friend, I'm going to tell them, because our life is very short. So if it triggers you, that's on you, sweetie. And I'm sorry, but this is how it's going to be with me. Like, I will show people unconditional love until the day I die. Because I had to learn that that's out there. I had to learn all that on my own. I had to learn how to sit in this power, in this presence, in this energy, with God, with Source, on my own. with the support of a few people that God has sent into my life, right? And I want you guys to understand that this is totally fucking possible for anybody. So, thank you for being in this. Thank you for commenting in this. I really appreciate your time. I just needed to share that today. And I love you all so much. And I hope that this life gives you everything that you deserve, because it is your birthright to have everything that you could ever imagine. I love you. Thank you. And I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I needed to hear that today. And not that I'm always looking for outside validation, but sometimes it's really nice. So thank you. Okay. For real now. Bye.